I was just thinking about how weird it is to have lived through all these different eras of Nintendo. The Switch wasn't the first comeback for Nintendo, it was the second comeback. We had the falling out with the GameCube, and then we bounced back with the Wii with casual stuff, and then we bounced back with the Switch again with, I don't know, just being good after, with the Wii U. It's never been the games. It's never been the games that were a problem. I noticed that if a Nintendo console is failing or did fail, it's not the software. Nintendo has the software on lockdown. It's like the marketing. There's a big marketing fail, or the hardware fails to get over with the audience. The Wii U was both. It was a complete failure. GameCube, kind of both, another failure, but they bounced back. Okay, and what you're seeing here as a eulogy for the Switch and talking about what was good, what was bad, what was new, a celebration of life, they call it now when you die. The Switch is about to die, as in the Switch 2 is coming out, and we're seeing these eras of Nintendo. I've lived through a few of them. You live through Nintendo's failures and their successes, and this is kind of like the first time in a long time where it feels like we're seeing the birth of a conservative, um, utilitarian Nintendo. A Nintendo that is like not wanting to take risks now. And it's like we're going back to the Super Nintendo. And in fact, they did want to call um, originally the Switch 2 the Super Switch. Imagine that. Uh, so what's happening here is we're going to see if Nintendo can do a hat trick, right? That means two in a row, two successes in a row. It's not impossible, but we're seeing just a different Nintendo. And I'm not seeing the same hype. I don't know if I'm just disconnected from the whole thing, but the Switch 2 is coming out this week, and I don't see the mania that I remember with like the Wii or you know, or the N64 for that matter. Um, it doesn't really feel new, and maybe that's what executives want. Maybe that's what Nintendo wants. Maybe that's what the investors want. The Switch was such a massive success, it's probably going to overtake the PS2 in sales, becoming the best-selling console ever. They had the software on lock, and finally they had the hardware on lock. What does that mean for the Switch? It's simple. It's cheap. It's actually not gimmicky. The whole switching thing where you switch to the TV, that's not a real gimmick. That's nothing. That's what people wanted. They wanted Nintendo to get out of Nintendo's own way. And we saw in three simple steps. When we went from the Wii U to the Switch, we saw, the death of Iwata, and we saw eventually Reggie Fils-Aimé going away. Old faces were gone, new faces. It turned out we didn't need personality to sell the hardware. Doug Bowser doesn't really have the personality. He has the name, but where's the personality? He's no Reggie Fils-Aimé, and it turned out it didn't matter. So the first point with my Switch eulogy here is that old faces die and the new faces didn't matter. It didn't matter if we could do something funny on stage. If we could just give people a product they wanted with Nintendo Directs, get it out the door, that was enough. And that's what we got. Point two I want to make is that this is, while we are seeing, like I said before, conservative Nintendo not taking as many risks, buckling down, doubling down on what they know how to do, and trying not to do anything new that they might not know how to do right, like with the Wii U and such. We're seeing, like, in my feeling, the very first time that Nintendo hardware with the Switch generation was not physically great. It got across exactly what it was trying to do. It gave people what they wanted. But for me personally, this was the very first time with the Switch 1 that I had not just a Nintendo console, any console, where my primary controller was not the first party controller. My primary controller for the Switch 1 ended up being the Hori split pad. It's unbelievable to think that. Like, you can build up so much trust with the buyer, like 7 or 8 generations of trust in Nintendo controllers, Nintendo hardware. Nintendium, they used to call it. You never notice how nobody says that anymore? Those little things you don't notice until they're gone, like fog. You're in a fog, it seems endless, and then one day you're out of it and you don't know how you got out of it. That's Nintendium. People used to say it all the time. It's gone now. Nobody trusts the Joy-Con, and I don't trust the Joy-Con too. As soon as I can get rid of them, I'm getting rid of them. I'm getting something from Hori. That's so sad. It's absolutely ridiculous. You think about that for a minute. Every other Nintendo console I have and still play to this day, I use their controller. The Switch was the first time where I did not believe in Nintendium anymore. The console scratched itself going into the dock. Just going into the dock scratched itself. And the Joy-Cons, going easy on them, just started drifting. I remember drifting, people posting videos of their controller drifting day one when the Switch launched, day one. And I'm curious to see if that's going to happen with the Switch 2. So that's my second point I want to make here, is that the hardware, this is the first time where the hardware wasn't completely trustworthy. Like I said, it gives people what they want, but for the hardcore user, they're going to notice some problems. I had a rough launch. Are we going to have a rough launch with the Switch 2? There's some things that scare me with the Switch 2. I'll get into that later. And for my third point, you flubbed it with the Wii U, and then finally you said, you know what? Let's get rid of handhelds. Not so long ago, we had handheld games. Now we don't. We just have games. That's probably the way the future's going. When we don't say console, we're just going to say games in general. What do you play it on? I don't know, everything? What did Mario come out on? I don't know, phones, and so on and so forth. So as a quasi point here, the Switch killed handhelds. The Switch killed the faces, the hardware quality, and the handhelds, and killed the experimental version of Nintendo. I'm happy for Nintendo to just buckle down and make good games, but they've always done that. They've always had the software, and software will get you like 75% of the way. Marketing will get you the rest of the way. So we're going to see what happens with the Switch 2 going forward. And what we see with their next piece of hardware, the Switch 2, it's in the name. It's called Switch 2. Right? We're not experimenting anymore. What are we getting? Mouse controls. That's it. That's what you're getting with the Switch 2. And a chat function no one's going to use. So the Switch 1 generation was a huge paradigm shift, and we all saw it happen in real time. When you see it happening in real time, it doesn't feel like a big change until you're through it. We don't have new faces. We don't have Reggie Fils-Aimé. We don't have anyone to pin our hopes on physically. It's just this blob of Nintendo, whatever it is, this monolith. We see that. We know not to trust the Nintendo hardware on a physical level anymore. I'm scared of the freaking Joy-Cons. I'm scared of that little nub on the outside that's exposed to space around it. Is that going to break off? We're going to find out. I have a lot of doubts because that little nub is not a part of the Joy-Con. It's a part of the Switch 2 itself. When that fails, what do I do? Big questions, right? And I'm sure it's going to fail because we don't have Nintendium anymore. They can't get any more Nintendium. They can't get it out of the ground. It's too difficult. We're running out of Nintendium. It's not their fault. And the Switch 2 is right around the corner. Like I said, I'm not really seeing the hype, but we'll see what happens when we get there. I'm wearing the world's dirtiest hat, and I'll see you next time.